Welcome to VSOW. In a world, well, saturated by hyper-efficiency, constant optimization, and this relentless pressure of technological anxiety, we're taking a bit of a dramatic turn today. We're looking for wisdom from perhaps the most unexpected source, the Amish.
It really does seem counterintuitive, doesn't it? I mean, what can a society defined by, draft horses and these communal phone shanties actually teach the 21st century learner?
Right.
But our deep dive into this stack of sociological and environmental research, it reveals something pretty profound. By rigorously prioritizing community and intentionality, the Amish have engineered a level of social and ecological resilience that puts them, well, in many ways, out ahead of the rest of us.
Absolutely, and that's what we're digging into. We're synthesizing research detailing their really sophisticated environmental stewardship, their unique negotiation with modern technology, and the deep structure of their community organization. So our mission today is really to pull out the concrete lessons of intentional living. We're analyzing how their commitment to less choice, to these deliberate collective limits, might paradoxically foster, incredibly durable joy and profound community strength for the individual.
It really is a study in structural genius, you could say.
Oh,
They've somehow mastered the ability to harness utility without incurring fragmentation. We're looking not just at history or tradition here, but at a living example of values-driven sustainability in action.
okay, so let's start at the beginning. To understand their intentional choices, we have to establish the bedrock of their culture. Can you walk us through the historical and religious foundations that shaped the Amish world?
Sure. So their story begins with the Anabaptist branch of the Protestant Reformation. It traces its origins back to Switzerland and Alsace in 1693. Today, they're a burgeoning population primarily concentrated across North America. Ohio, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Iowa are the major hubs. Their social structure is built on the patriarchal family unit, which is tightly woven into the church community, or the Gemeinde, as they call it. And this community, the Gemeinde, it's viewed as the necessary redemptive context for collective salvation, rather than purely individual salvation.
Right. And the practical boundary, the thing that sort of delineates this community from the outside world, the mechanism keeping them structurally coherent, that's the Ordnung, isn't it?
Precisely, the Ordnung. It's not some static document. It's a living set of socio-religious rules. It defines boundaries, and crucially, it limits the scale of their culture and their technology. It's really a collective statement of how they choose to live together.
Can you give us maybe the most illustrative example of the Ordnung's effect on their physical life? Something really tangible.
I think the clearest one is the prohibition of automobiles for church members. And along with that, the strict limitation of agricultural power to draft horses, like the powerful Belgians and Percherons you see. And this isn't just arbitrary tradition. You have to see it as an engineering decision. Prohibiting cars, well, it forces social interaction. You have to rely on neighbors for transport sometimes. And limiting power inherently limits scale.
So that limitation on power, then, it acts as a kind of antidote to hyper-individualism and unchecked accumulation, which often drive modern farming.
Exactly right. Because the field work is restricted to what a family and a team of horses can manage, the farm size is naturally constrained. Typically, you're looking at between 20 and 60 hectares.
Okay.
And this size constraint, it structurally reinforces community reliance. It prevents the kind of efficiency-driven expansion that leads farmers to isolate themselves on these vast monocultures. The limitation itself is what maintains the human scale of living.
So the choice to remain agrarian isn't just about a profession. It's framed as a spiritual mandate. I think you mentioned Genesis.
Yes, drawing directly from Genesis 2.15. And the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and keep it. What's really fascinating here is the theological weight they apply to manual labor. Farming is seen as offering a quieter life, and one feels closer to God. We have this powerful quote from a visiting bishop in Pennsylvania that I think captures the essence of their long-term vision of land stewardship. He said, "We should conduct our lives as if Jesus would return today, but take care of the land as if he would not be coming for 1,000 years.
Wow. That's radical sustainability right there. It's an approach where, short-term profit maximization is just instantly rejected in favor of multi-generational responsibility. It completely reframes the discussion around climate and resource exhaustion we're having now.
It absolutely does. Their foundational belief is in what's called the creation doctrine, as one Amish source put it, quite beautifully, I think. The Creator left nothing undone, nor was any part of it planned haphazardly. So all of creation, and critically all biodiversity, is viewed as God's handiwork, something to be honored. Tending the garden, therefore, becomes the spiritual basis for values that actively promote diversity and complexity in the ecosystem.
And this leads us to a really critical concept, Gelassenheit, which translates roughly as yieldedness. This seems like the internal spiritual engine for their external restraint.
Gelassenheit is exactly that. It's the internal submission of self-will to God and also to the community. In the modern world, we tend to celebrate the big, all right, self-optimization, personal ambition, radical self-expression.
Mm.
The Amish cultural structure, driven by Gelassenheit, demands that the personal ego yield to the collective wisdom.
So how does this pretty abstract concept of yieldedness translate into practical daily behavior, especially thinking about things like wealth and consumption?
Well, work itself becomes a ritual sign of this submission. Because they yield their individual will, they view farming, this work lived close to God's creations, as a holy life. It's distinct from pursuing, say, human creations or material status. And this is why you see resistance to debt, resistance to accumulating flashy possessions, and resistance to scale that exceeds actual need. They're modeling a profound contentment by choosing satisfaction over constant optimization.
And this deeply rooted respect for the land, it wasn't just derived from scripture alone, was it? Our sources suggest it was actually forged in historical crisis.
Absolutely. The period of persecution spanning the 16th through 18th centuries in Europe, it forced Anabaptists out of settled areas. They were pushed into marginal remote lands like the high valleys of the Jura and the Vosges Mountains.
Right, difficult terrain.
Very difficult. So to survive and feed their families in those environments, they had to quickly develop a high ethic of environmental stewardship. Survival literally depended on innovation and sustainable resource management. And eventually, this led them to become renowned as superior land stewards.
We even find evidence of this profound connection to nature in their historical records, like that 1681 poem you mentioned, documenting their grief over displacement.
Yes, it's a powerful cultural anchor. The poem expresses this deep sadness at leaving their beloved regions and mountain homelands. The text reads something like, "Farewell, you Alps, you beloved regions, you native village in the great valley, you beloved fields, another will tell you, O house of my youth, you will I never see. God keep you. Farewell for the last time." That deep historical attachment, forged through necessity and faith, is really what makes their contemporary farming techniques so uniquely sophisticated, I think.
Okay, so that bridge from the spiritual foundation to practical application brings us right to the farmstead. Their commitment to biodiversity sounds like an active investment because, as our sources note, they're maximizing nature's free services.
Exactly. And this is the economic genius of their system, really. By prioritizing biodiversity, they minimize their input costs. These free services include essential things like, well, free fertilizer, derived from highly valued animal manure, and free pest control, provided by the multitude of birds and natural predators their mixed habitats attract. Their system is highly integrated and diversified. It's designed to be self-regulating.
Let's talk about some specific practices then. Unlike industrialized agriculture, which really relies on chemical efficiency, the Amish seem to rely on biological efficiency. Their farms are essentially solar-powered by those draft horses, and their nutrient cycling sounds impressive.
Yeah, the research confirms it. Their systems, by integrating livestock and crop production, operate on extremely efficient nutrient cycles, especially for nitrogen. The careful handling and application of animal manure builds and maintains excellent soil quality. That translates directly into very low costs for purchase fertility. They're maximizing output through biological complexity, not through chemical synthesis.
And their crop rotation is a critical element in maintaining that biological complexity, I gather.
Yes, absolutely critical. They typically use a robust 4 or 5 year rotation. It might look something like, hey, corn, oats, and then a small grain like spelts or wheat. This diversity is the key mechanism for biological resilience. By not planting the same crop repeatedly year after year, they naturally break most insect and disease cycles, which means they have minimal need for expensive fungicides or insecticides. This complexity isn't accidental, it's a deliberate choice to buy less external, specialized input.
This level of planning and interdependence is really remarkable, but here's where it gets, I think, really compelling. Their refusal to rely solely on standardized calendars. They choose instead to observe nature as their planting guide. It sounds almost like they're creating their own highly customized bioregional algorithm just through observation.
That's actually an excellent way to put it. It's highly localized knowledge, transmitted over generations. It prioritizes real-time biological data over an arbitrary date on the calendar. They know, for example, that clover is best sown when the ground reaches a honeycombed state, due to freezing and thawing cycles. Oats are sown when the service berries in bloom, usually around mid-April.
And the corn planting, which is maybe the most famous example of this localized wisdom people hear about.
Precisely. Corn planting is timed for when the dogwoods bloom and when the young white oak leaves reach the size of a squirrel's foot. Now, this isn't just folklore, it's a sophisticated dynamic data dashboard, if you will. The timing of those specific biological events signals that the soil temperature and moisture content are optimally stable for seed germination. And that's a far more reliable indicator than just picking a date.
This acute observation extends even to something as seemingly simple as cutting hay.
It does. Hay is cut not just when it looks ready, but often when the farmer observes the first monarch butterfly crossing the field. That signals peak maturity. But even then, they wait. They watch the barometric pressure, they read the clouds, ensuring they can guarantee the 3 consecutive days of sunshine required to cure the hay properly. They're essentially using nature as their ultimate quality control system.
Okay, let's focus for a moment on the active preservation of genetic diversity. You mentioned livestock. They intentionally favor natural breeding over artificial insemination.
That's right, which maintains a more robust gene pool for their cattle, hogs, and horses.
And in terms of crops, while they do use some hybrids, they seem extremely intentional about their seed sources.
Very intentional. They tend to view giant corporate seed companies with, well, quite a bit of skepticism. They see them as symbols of centralization and control. So instead, they prefer to purchase their hybrid seed corn from smaller, family-owned regional companies. Names like Yoder's, Dobler's, Rupp come up.
Yeah.
By doing that, they're actively supporting a diversified seed market and, indirectly, helping preserve the genetic diversity of maize varieties.
And we absolutely cannot overlook the role of women here, especially in preserving heirloom varieties through the vegetable gardens.
No, absolutely not. The family vegetable garden is traditionally the domain of Amish women, and it's a crucial element of self-sufficiency and, frankly, quality of life. Gardens, like the Elsie's garden mentioned in one source, become these living repositories of genetic history. Varieties like lazy wife beans or raw beta lettuce are maintained through meticulous seed exchange with family and friends. This preserves domesticated garden plant diversity, and it also reinforces family history alongside creating these spaces of great beauty on the farmstead.
It also sounds like they're treating certain weeds and even pests almost like diagnostic tools rather than just enemies to be eradicated.
That's a very good way to put it, yes. Amish farmers are keen observers of indicator plants. They know that if sorrel is thriving, the soil likely has a low pH. If quackgrass is growing vigorously, it probably indicates a calcium deficiency. They even have a saying that captures this perspective. Das ungesund Tier hat die Lice, which means roughly, the unthrifty animal has the lice. The idea is that pest insects, like the alfalfa weevil, are often a symptom of underlying soil nutrient imbalances, not the primary problem itself.
So this small-scale integrated approach fundamentally alters the ecological environment itself
Right.
compared to large monocultures.
It creates much better habitat diversity. Small-scale farming naturally generates numerous ecological zones, edges, and corridors. Think fence rows, woodlots, riparian strips, these mixed hayfields, all crucial for flora and fauna.
Mm.
Industrial monoculture essentially eliminates these edges. A particularly striking example from the research is the bobolink, a late nesting bird. Since Amish hayfields, typically a clover-timothy alfalfa mix, mature later than industrial fields, the bobolinks have a much higher nesting success rate there. They're observed far more frequently on Amish land.
The system's resilience, therefore, seems to rest heavily on its flexibility and the deep transmission of this very local, very specific knowledge.
Flexibility is paramount. When unexpected events hit like that hard frost mentioned in the sources that damaged the spelt's crop back in 95-96, the system didn't just collapse. Farmers simply adapted. They plowed the damaged crop under and planted a second year of corn instead. This required local knowledge dynamically applied based on shared experience. David Klein, the nature writer and minister who chronicled so much of this, he learned his system not just from books, but crucially from his father, and also from a naturalist schoolteacher.
And given the technological limits, how is this sophisticated body of knowledge formally and informally passed down through generations?
Well, a lot of it is passed on orally, through everyday observation and example. Children learning why fireflies are most abundant over oat fields, or how to read the clouds for weather. But they also use resources. They certainly utilize commercially available field guides, like the Peterson series, and importantly, they publish their own guides, specifically tailored for Amish children.
So the integration of this nature theme even permeates their own media, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Magazines you'd find in Amish homes like Family Life and Young Companion, they frequently feature nature quizzes and articles, things like Marvels of Nature.
Mm.
And these often use creatures, maybe the titmouse, to teach patience, or perhaps the spider, to teach wisdom and willingness. It's a truly integrated worldview where faith, farming, and education are just inextricably linked through the observation of creation.
Okay, moving from the intentional stewardship of the land to the intentional stewardship of the community itself, the two are clearly inseparable in this model. The Amish life seems to demand a really strong sense of mutual aid, where the collective well-being is the primary metric of success.
Yes, and their community governance structure is fascinatingly detailed. Church districts are formed based on shared ideology, school districts, and critically, a population limit usually around 40 households.
Why the limit?
That population limit is intentional. It ensures that mutual aid is always practical and possible for everyone involved, everyone. And what's particularly unique is their connection to common watershed topography.
The watershed connection. So that links their environmental responsibility directly to community governance. Why is running water and topography so vital?
Well, their propensity to seek land with running water is tied partly to necessity, for dairy cows for cooling milk, but it often also references the comforting imagery of Psalm 23, He leadeth me beside the still waters. This physically binds the community's governance to the environmental health of their specific locale. We see a really powerful contrast in that Salt Creek Township study mentioned in the sources.
Tell us a bit more about that study. What did it reveal about the difference between Amish and non-Amish land use regarding these water sources?
The study showed a clear tendency for Amish farms to purchase and, importantly, retain land containing streams or headwaters. They actively protected these riparian zones. In sharp contrast, non-Amish farms in the same area often displaced or simply plowed over headwaters. By 1960, the study found 52% of the mapped headwater end branches were just missing,
Wow.
which caused significant loss of biodiversity and increased soil sediment runoff into the waterways. So the Amish cultural value of stewardship effectively became a policy of environmental protection simply through their land purchasing choices and their farming practices.
And the preservation of the land itself is also structural, ensured through this practice of single-heir succession.
That's key to the long-term sustainability, yes. The practice of single-heir succession, which is decided by the parents, prevents the fragmentation of the land over generations. This helps ensure that the stewardship ethic is maintained and reinforced down the line. The biggest complication today, however, is the rising real estate values. Often inflated by tourism or urban pressure, it makes it increasingly difficult for the designated successor to actually afford to keep the farm in the family.
Now, when we talk about collective strength, the barn raising is probably the ultimate physical manifestation of social capital. It's a ritual that seems to reject individualism entirely.
It really is a profound kinetic demonstration of interdependence. A barn raising is meticulously coordinated, led by experienced elders who manage the logistics. They utilize hand tools, mallets, chisels, saws, many of which have been passed down through generations. And this focus on craftsmanship over sheer machine efficiency is a very deliberate choice.
And the division of labor during a barn raising, it reinforces the social roles that hold the entire society together, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The men handle the heavy construction, the framing, raising the walls, the roofing. The women's role is equally vital, focusing on hospitality, preparing these massive, hearty communal meals, often feeding hundreds of people. The women's work creates that atmosphere of warmth and comfort. Children assist too, maybe as runners or helping serve food. The community comes together not just to erect a building, but explicitly to reinforce the intricate bonds of interdependence. The product might be the barn, but the purpose is strengthening the community bond.
And that mutual aid isn't just limited to emergencies like a barn fire. It's woven into the very fabric of daily work life through these communal work rings.
Yes, these rings are intentional structures designed to, manufacture interdependence. They organize labor and specialized equipment exchanges. You see the smaller threshing rings, typically involving maybe 4 to 6 neighbors sharing a threshing machine. Then there are the larger silo filling rings, which can involve 8 to 15 farmers, all helping one person put corn silage into their silo.
Coordinating the silo filling sounds like a masterclass in logistics, especially with so many participants and the urgency of getting the crop in at the right time.
Oh, it's extremely complex. The rings often overlap slightly, requiring really high-level coordination to balance the corn maturation status of immediate neighbors versus wider ring members, all while ensuring nobody gets double booked. These work rings demonstrate the constant, almost weekly, labor exchange that defines their lives. They are deliberately making sure they need each other, essentially creating excuses for regular, scheduled social interaction and mutual support.
And these exchanges adhere pretty strictly to age and gender roles, which might seem restrictive to an outside observer, but presumably ensures efficiency within their established structure.
The roles are quite precise, yes. For example, while women may participate in some lighter field work like hay baling or threshing, the heavy lifting associated with silo filling means that task is generally reserved for men. This reliance also extends to specialized equipment exchanges. Maybe a farmer with a specialized right-handed plow teams up with a neighbor who owns the more common left-handed plow, allowing their horse teams to plow efficiently in opposite directions down a field. It's engineered social interaction driving agricultural efficiency.
Okay, so we've established the intentionality behind their faith, their land use, their community structure. Now we arrive at what might be the most potent lesson for our hyperspeed modern world, how they negotiate with technology. The popular image of the Amish as, Luddites is really inaccurate. They don't shun all technology. The sources say they are incredibly intentional about what they allow into their lives.
This really is the core takeaway, I think. They use technology as a tool, not as an organizing principle for their lives. They scrutinize every innovation against a single measure: its potential to harm or enhance their core values, family time, simplicity, self-sufficiency, and, critically, those neighborly connections. If an innovation isolates, it's generally rejected. If it serves utility without sacrificing the collective, it might be adapted.
And this leads to some fascinating adaptations, this taming of modern technology. They use electricity, for instance, but they manage the source to maintain control.
Exactly. They refuse connection to the public grid. Instead, they'll rely on localized diesel generators or, increasingly, solar panels for power.
Right.
This maintains self-reliance, insulating them from external utilities and to potential governmental interference. It ensures their independence.
And the telephone, the quintessential modern disruptor that constantly fragments our attention, how do they contain that particular beast?
They recognize the phone as a major source of family fragmentation and individual distraction. Therefore, they prohibit personal home phones. Their solution is the communal phone shanty. These small structures, often situated at the edge of the property, make using the phone inconvenient enough to discourage casual chatter and prioritize face-to-face conversation. We talk about needing a digital detox. They have essentially engineered the need for constant detox right out of their daily lives just by making connectivity difficult.
That is a powerful lesson in establishing boundaries through sheer physical inconvenience. Their approach to computing also speaks volumes, allowing function, but stripping away the isolation.
Right. Some might use word processors or specialized software for business accounting, but they are deliberately stripped down. Crucially, these devices lack internet connectivity, games, or video capability. They are strictly functional tools for commerce, not sources of personal isolating entertainment or connection to the wider world. It's the difference between embracing technology for a specific utilitarian application versus embracing it for constant distracting stimulation.
And this process of negotiation isn't led by a single bishop or leader. It's a collective process of discernment involving the entire community council.
This is absolutely key. Twice a year, members of each Amish community meet to review and affirm or adjust the ordinance regarding technology usage. This reflects a deep commitment to collective wisdom. The individual consumer choice is replaced by a communal ethical choice. It ensures that what defines their life is affirmed by all, rather than being dictated by individual consumer impulses or the latest gadget.
And they apply a really potent ethical filter to any new innovation, one that's hugely instructive, I think, for anyone seeking intentional living today. They ask three crucial questions.
Yes, and these questions. Maybe they should be posted above every modern family's Wi-Fi router. First, will it help us have Jesus as Lord of our lives? Second, will it be of benefit to the person? And third, crucially, will it draw us together as a community or isolate us?
That third question, will it draw us together or isolate us, seems to be the real mechanism that tames the technological impulse. If we connect this framework to our modern reality, it's incredibly powerful for anyone seeking minimalism or just a calmer life.
It forces the taming of the big I, as we discussed earlier. The Amish thrive because they experience what sociologists call huge quantities of social capital daily.
Oh.
That system works because they prioritize the community over relentless individual optimization, and the result is structural loyalty. Estimates suggest roughly 85% of young people choose to remain Amish after their Rumspringa period, their time of exploring the outside world. They are choosing community embrace and stability over what they perceive as the chaos and fragmentation of the outside world.
They also model a kind of radical patience and deep contentment, which really stands in sharp contrast to our often debt-fueled, always wanting consumer culture.
Yes, their slow pace isn't just incidental, it's a deliberate lifestyle choice. It creates opportunities for observation and learning from nature, as David Klein highlighted so well. They model being content with what they need now, avoiding debt, resisting the urge to overbuy or overextend. We see this powerful contentment articulated perfectly in that anecdote about the farmer who turned down $6 million dollars for his 98-acre farm.
Turning down $6 million dollars for a relatively small farm, that's almost incomprehensible in a world where we're told to monetize every asset. What was his reasoning?
His reasoning was, well, remarkably simple. He was content. The farm provided for his needs, it allowed him to live according to his faith, and it sustained his family within the community. Accepting the money would have necessitated moving, severing those vital community ties, and introducing massive complexity and probably individualism into his family's life. He prioritized existential satisfaction, that holy life, over financial optimization. That is the very definition of Gelassenheit put into practice.
And the intentional choice to prioritize home life as a sanctuary that also directly addresses the kind of exhaustion that seems endemic to modern family life.
Absolutely. By generally choosing to stay home rather than participate in excessive external social events or endless scheduled activities for the kids, they reduce stress and exhaustion. Home becomes a place to gather, to recharge, to prepare a genuine center point of life, not just a staging area between external commitments. They are explicitly putting first things first. Family, neighbors, friends, and faith are the immovable pivot points of their lives. Even small things like turning off the phone ringer during meals reinforce this.
And even in their most traditional practices, like home births, we see their pragmatism shining through. Their adaptation seems strategic, not rigidly dogmatic.
This is critical to understanding their resilience, yes. For instance, while home births assisted by midwives are generally preferred, they show pragmatism by selectively integrating technology as a safety net. This might include using fetal monitors, keeping oxygen tanks on hand, and meticulously planning emergency transport routes and contacts if complications arise. These are rational, pragmatic decisions made to preserve life and well-being without compromising the core traditions of simplicity and community involvement. It's adaptation that is constantly serving, rather than defining, their identity.
So this constant collective process of discernment, banning what isolates, adapting what serves the collective, that seems to be the true engine of their resilience and the foundation of their profound, if complex, simplicity.
It really is. Their life may not be easy by modern standards, certainly not. But by having clear shared values and these structural limitations, they maintain a remarkable degree of control over their experience. They are not controlled by external innovation or the relentless demands of consumer culture in the same way.
This has been a deeply insightful deep dive. The Amish really demonstrate that self-reliance and community strength aren't built by rejecting technology entirely, but by skillfully taming the beast of modernity through intentional collective choice. Their deep connection to the land and their unwavering commitment to collective well-being sustains their identity and offers, as you said, those free services, both ecological and social.
Yes, and the sources reveal this profound, quiet confidence in their path, built on the slow, steady accumulation of wisdom and lived experience. I'm reminded again of that bumper sticker sometimes seen on an Amish buggy down in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. I may be slow, but I am ahead of you.
That is the perfect encapsulation of the paradox we've explored today, isn't it? Perhaps the true speed of a successful life isn't measured in miles per hour or transactions per second, but maybe in how quickly we forget our own core values. If the Amish are indeed ahead of us, it's likely because they choose to travel intentionally, not just quickly. If you enjoyed this deep dive into unexpected wisdom and maybe felt that sense of intentional reflection yourself, please be sure to subscribe, like, and perhaps leave a comment telling us which Amish practice, whether it's the phone shanty or the squirrel's foot planting guide, you think the modern world needs most right now.
Thank you for listening to VSOW.